Up next, Alan Quinlan's going to come into studio to chat to us all things rugby. Jordan Larmour's sensational hat-trick at the weekend against Italy in Chicago. The selection problems that Joe Schmidt might be facing, well, good problems with Larmour playing so well. Rob Kearney might be missing this weekend, and also areas like the second row and the back row where a lot of people are putting their hands up. Also as well, Joe Schmidt's future. He said recently that at the end of November he's going to let us know what his plans are for after the World Cup. We spoke about this yesterday on Off the Ball. Joe Malloy was joined by Andy Dunn and Rory O'Connor, and here's what they had to say about Schmidt's future.
So actually, one of the big news of everything from Chicago was Joe Schmidt on the decision. I mean, if you take, everything that's happened over the last few days. So he confirmed he's going to decide if he's going to stay on or not by the end of November. Talked about wanting clarity for either himself or the RFU, whichever way. He said, I can't say I've enjoyed working more with a group than the group he's working with now. He said that I've spoken to my wife, even the kids, talking to Tim last night, just trying to make a decision that is the right one for all of us, really. So we're going to find out in the next 3 to 4 weeks if Joe Schmidt is staying on or not. Yeah. Can we organise a march or something to try and sway him, or what do we have to do here?
It's entirely, I think there's nothing anyone can say to him that it'll eventually be him in a darkened room making that call. You know, I'm sure he'll listen to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, only he knows what he wants to do, and only he knows. A lot of people speculate whether he wants the All Blacks job or not, you know, all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, Tim, and for all that he is a very kind of charming figure on camera and stuff like that, he keeps his cards close to his chest on these big things. I'd say Nusafora has an inkling. That sounds positive, but then he could say something this week that will throw it, and I keep vacillating between the two. I'm never sure which way I could fall on it. So we'll find out when we find out.
Alan Quinlan, good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you, Neil?
First question: is Joe Schmidt going to stay or go?
Jeez, that's a good question.
No, thanks.
I'm nervous about it. I think if there's a real argument to say, you know, he's taken the team to exceptional highs, had massive success. With Claremont, with Leinster, with Ireland. He's been away from home 11 years. The chance of going back home and coaching the All Blacks is very high, I think. I think they'd be foolish to overlook him, and I'm sure they'd want him after Steve Hansen is leaving after the World Cup as well. So I'm pretty nervous about that. I'd love for him to stay, obviously, as everyone would. I think it'd be hugely disappointing, but very understandable if he left.
And if he does, I would assume it's not going to be for any lack of effort from the IRFU trying to keep him. I'd imagine they'll roll out heaven and earth to keep him.
Yeah, I think, of course they would. Yeah, they'd try and keep him, but I think they have to plan without him a little bit. Have a plan B as well, because if he does go, and look, to be fair, the information will be passed on in plenty of time between now and the end of the World Cup to find a suitable replacement. I think Andy Farrell is probably the obvious choice. Stuart Lancaster, Ronan O'Gara. There's a fair bit of quality and talent, and they would have learned a lot from Joe Schmidt. So I don't think, I think bringing someone completely new in from the outside would probably break up the whole coaching team, and I don't think it'll happen. I think there's a certain amount of continuity there with Simon Easterby's there, Lancaster's there.
And he's been a very good delegator over the last few years of actually empowering a lot of his coaching staff. Like, I'd imagine it's always his final say and everything, but even this week, you know, he stayed back for a few days. It was Andy Farrell and his other coaches who kind of took the team for the first few days in Chicago.
I think he will trust them now at this stage, because they've been together for a number of years, and they know what. Like, there was obviously a few changes since the last World Cup, and these guys have been together for a while. So I think they'll understand the template, the plan, the standard that's required for every training session. We hear about that a lot. I'd be envious. I'd love to be involved in a setup like that where you're just getting so much detail and information, and you've got to go out and execute. Now, the chances of me lasting in that situation and adhering to any sort of structure or game plan would be very minimal, so I probably wouldn't last too long in the environment. But I think for any young player, yes, they're challenged. There's a fair bit of pressure on them, but you saw what pressure and being challenged does to them on Saturday night with, effectively an A team beating another A team relentlessly in the second half. Can you look too much into it? Not really, I think, but certainly it was a ruthless kind of killing, if you like, and that was important. And that's kind of the standards he sets. We only had 5 offloads in the game, which was a little bit disappointing for me. There has been a little bit of criticism at times that we're very direct, we're very structured. But I think, particularly in the last 12 months, and the big kind of eye-opener was Twickenham, the way we went there, had a plan, opened up the game, and showed that we have an ability to attack when we need to do that. And so I think this team now has a number of game plans, so many different options in so many different positions, but the overall template of high work rate, being really accurate at everything to do is very important to Joe Schmidt. I think he's been phenomenal, and the record speaks for itself, and it'd be a shame to lose him, because you think if the All Blacks get him back, how much better could they be? Because look, you're kind of guaranteed to, for the last 10 years they've just been at a different level, really.
And the timing as well, is it right that even if he is to stay or go, that, 12 months out from a World Cup, he's going to let everyone know right here, right now, not have this cloud hanging over the questions?
I think that's important
for a year or so, just to give everyone clarity.
Yeah.
And look, if you don't like the decision, so be it, but at least there's a lot of time to plan.
Yeah, no, I think he's been fair, and look, he's a meticulous planner.
Yeah.
So this is a plan. He likes to know what's happening and have a structure in place. So he'll have a plan in place if he's leaving, and that's, you have a personal plan, a working plan, everything like that. So he's very structured around what he wants to do and how he does it, and I think that'll be good clarity for the RFU as well. Like I said, I think there'll be continuity in whoever comes in or replaces, trying to keep the main bunch of coaches that are there ready, because I think there's a good template there, and obviously every individual coach will have their own ideas and do things differently, but I think what's been worked on with this group and in the last 2 years has brought fantastic success. So I think I'm fearing the worst, to be honest. I hope I'm wrong, but look, if it happens, I think there's a core group of outstanding players there. You could start rattling off a number of names, and
we may as well start actually.
Put the world class, but put the world class bracket to them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Going forward, and the age profile of the squad is good. So I think it's not the end of the world, even though it'd be disappointing. And I think there's some very good coaches who could step in, who are already kind of in situ.
Right, so move on to something a bit more positive. Jordan Larmour's performance on Saturday evening, one of the few things you really can actually take from the game.
Yeah, he was outstanding. I think it's Italy, Neil. We've got to put that into context. You're going to have a different battle, and Kieran, you probably agree.
Yeah, some of their tackling attempts were pretty...
Yeah, look, they were very abrasive and full of gusto and energy in the first kind of 50 minutes, but they got sloppy. I
think once the third try went in just after...
Yeah, so he's
Burns just after half time.
Yeah, his anticipation for the first try it comes off a mistake, it hits the Italian player, and it lands straight in his lap. We know how quick he is. The second one, he didn't have to do a lot for it. The third one is a piece of outstanding individual brilliance. It's hard to coach that, and you talk about X factor and players, and I was trying to think of players who've come through, young players who had this kind of excitement attached to them. And when Keith Earls came into Munster first, he was incredible footwork. He was someone who just brought great excitement. He would skin people in training, and he had that ability to do those kind of things that Larmour does naturally now. Luke Fitzgerald, when he came out of school, incredible. He was a sensation in schools rugby, and he made that jump straight into Leinster and Ireland very, very quickly, and had that swerving runs. So Zebo, X-Factor stuff you're talking about. Larmour has that, but you have to kind of err. I'm a bit pragmatic in my approach here. Argentina is different. New Zealand is different. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't pick one of your a natural attacking
if
player.
Rob Kearney, it looks like, for all the world, like Rob Kearney probably is going to be missing this weekend. Like Joe Schmidt said, it's, he's going to give him every chance, but he didn't really sound too confident, judging by the quotes in the papers today. If Kearney is out for this weekend especially, is Larmour going in for you?
Yeah, he is, of course, yeah.
And then All Blacks, if Rob Kearney is available or not?
Andrew Conway's played full-back, and Joe Schmidt is a fan of his as well. I think Joe will first and foremost look at and when breaking down the reasons for whatever selection he does go with, is quality in the air. Can you take the ball in the air? Defensive position. Because if Jordan Larmour plays this week or next week, he is going to be tested with high balls. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and they will try and challenge him. And we probably haven't seen enough of him in those areas. Now, there's no doubt he probably can do it, and I'm sure he can do it. That's where he'll be challenged. But you know, he's the front runner to start if Rob Kearney doesn't play this weekend. Now, if he plays and goes well against Argentina, Jordan Larmour, well, then you have a decision to make.
You have a big decision
yeah, and
to
if he
make,
plays well defensively, if he's strong, because we've seen him kind of jump the gun a little bit before defensively and stuff like that. So his attack is phenomenal, but it's the defensive stuff and his aerial ability that's probably going to be tested. And if he goes well in those areas this week, well, then he could start against the All Blacks, and he offers you a package then that's. Because Rob Kearney's attack isn't the same as Jordan Larmour's. They're different players, but Rob Kearney's strength is defensively, his ability in the air and the left boot as well. Some people give out about that and say it's too conservative the way we play and Rob hasn't scored a try, but I think he's a character, and when you play the All Blacks you're going to be tested mentally as well as physically, and he scored a couple of years ago in Dublin against them. So you could play Jordan Larmour, and
he's always been a player, Kearney, for the big games, especially. So he does tend to play better against the better teams.
Yeah, his form has been good in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years since he played in Chicago. And I did a piece of him on the paper a few weeks ago. That was a turning point for him because he was at a pivotal moment in his career there, particularly with Ireland, that Joe Schmidt had a conversation with him before that game and said, look, I'm putting my faith in here, you need a big one. And he went out and delivered, and he has delivered since. Jordan Larmour's attacking ability is sensational. You know, that's not Rob Kearney's game, but it depends what Joe Schmidt wants. He might say, let's go all out attack against the All Blacks. But I don't think he will do that. I think he will, he'll have a plan and a structure to try and break them down. And it won't be that type of really open, running, fluid game that it's going to be unbelievably physical. And we've seen from the encounters before, the game here 2 years ago in November was a real bruising contest. You think of the Fekitow tackle on Zebo, the Sam Cane shoulder into Robbie Henshaw. There was a couple of other late clashes and collisions. It was brutal, really, and it's building up to be that as well again. So I'm not saying Jordan Larmour can't do it. Absolutely can, and could be sensational. What he did the other day was astonishing. That try was just unbelievable. So different players, but I suspect Joe Schmidt will go with possibly the safer approach, and Rob Kearney if he's fit.
Kieran, it was I suppose a much more tepid occasion at Soldier Field on Saturday compared to 2 years ago against the All Blacks. Even though the attendance,
the documentary will be a harder sell, I think, this time.
Much harder sell.
No, what's
the merits of it?
Money.
Money obviously.
Is the merit, because it's obviously, by all accounts, it could be the guts of €1 million. So, any sporting body isn't going to turn that down. But you would want a more competitive game in future, I would think, Alan.
I think so. If
we're trying to sell the game to America,
I think if you're going outside the country, you need to have a bigger, with respect to Italy, the merits and what do you get out of it? You get practically your A team. Having a top-class performance and putting a team away. Now, I'd be more frustrated and say there was no merit or no value in this if we won by 10, 12 points and we won 25-16 or something like that. But I think I was impressed with the ruthless kind of nature in the second half, and that's driven from not just the players, the coaching. Joe would want them to kind of put him to the sword. I was pleased with him defensively. They gave away one try. There was a couple of times in the first half they were hanging on for dear life on the line, but they kept defending and stayed robust in what they were trying to do. So it's a bit of a non-fixture, really, bar the value that these players will get and confidence maybe from being involved in a game like that. But a sell as a crowd for Americans, there was a lot of Irish there, but you need bigger games. If you're taking them out like that, nothing will ever equal what happened in Chicago 2 years ago.
And that probably was a great sell for rugby in America because you had two of the best teams in the world, going head to head. It was a sold out crowd. Look, I wasn't there now, but it looked like an amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, and a cracking game. Like
game
even
as
like
well,
for neutrals, it was amazing.
A shootout, like
incredible game. Yeah. So, but look, they did what they had to do, and they probably made £1 million today.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah,
probably kept a couple of players in
so
Ireland.
It's a warm up for what's happening in the next couple of weeks, and that's just what it is. And
and like Jacob Stockdale was blooded in a similar enough game, and look how he kicked on. So who knows what it does to players? Something like that.
It'll do the Tyke Byrne the world of good to.
He's another player
dominate around the field like that. Like
because there's a second row choice to be made. First of all, I suppose this weekend against Argentina, is the Argentina team, is that pretty much going to be what we're going to be seeing against the All Blacks, bar maybe Rob Kearney if he isn't fit? And secondly, who is going to be playing, I'd like to know first of all in the second row, and then number 7. If we're thinking it's Peter O'Mahony and CJ Stander 6 and 8.
You're splitting hairs with Neil with some of the selections. There's nothing between them. I think Tyke Byrne, what he did at the weekend, has just it add weights to the value and the argument for him being in the mix and why he came back from the Scarlets. I think he's a phenomenal player. His performances this year for Munster have been top notch, and he was brilliant at the weekend. Is he a starter? I don't think so, and that sounds kind of harsh because you've two. If there was a Lions team being picked next week, Ian Henderson and James Ryan would probably be in the Lions squad. So that's the level that you're up against. Devin Toner has been sensational, and I think he's been spurred on by the performance of the young bucks, trying to put pressure on him. So does Tyke Byrne come straight in and start? I don't know. Like James Ryan himself are similar with their abrasive running and their all action energy around the field. So for me, I think James Ryan, and he's the first player I'm putting down on any sheet. I just think he's sensational. His work rate, his ability to read the game, he's hard, defensively very strong, and he's a sensational player. Henderson sometimes can drift in and out a little bit. I think he has an incredible ability when he has the ball in hand, and a great defensive player. Sometimes he's just a bit quiet for me, if you like, as he's not as dominant, and he has developed in the last year or two into, calling the lineouts for Ulster and calling the lineouts for Ireland. But I think those two start, and Byrne and Toner are probably on the bench. That's going to be harsh now in some of the back rowers because
there's a 7 to fill as well.
Yeah, I think Sean O'Brien will start.
And there's a lot of competition for that.
It's incredible, and I'm glad I'm not talking about Munster players because people say I'm being biased. There's 4 of them there, and they're all, Jordy Murphy is Ulster now, Sean O'Brien, Van der Fleer, Levy and Jordy Murphy. The 4 of them are, you could argue if Sean O'Brien is playing regularly and the level that he had when he was on the Lions tour 2 years ago, or it's over a year ago now, that he's a starter for you when he's fit, when he's playing well. But he's had so many injuries, and Levy did such an incredible job last year. And Levy's run in the Six Nations was on the back of Josh Van der Fleer getting injured in the first game in France. So, Van der Fleer could have went on to be sensational in that Six Nations. So it's just timing is everything. I know for myself when I played, injuries is, and there's 4 guys there who can all do a really, really good job. But I suspect that Sean O'Brien, he performs well in big matches. He loves the challenge, and he has that bit of experience, and nothing will fire him up as much as seeing a black jersey on Saturday week. But I think if he gets the nod against Argentina on Saturday, he may or may not, I don't know. He'll have to play well.
And before we wrap up, actually, I just want to mention England-South Africa on Saturday. That last play of the game, Owen Farrell's tackle. Is it a penalty? Is it a yellow card? Is it a red card? Is it totally fine? What's your take?
It's a penalty and a yellow for me.
Penalty and a yellow?
Yeah, a lot of people have said, and I know some of the
We have it here. You can just see there. That's the initial contact. So
yeah, I don't think the arm is wrapped enough. I think he's taken a major risk going so high. To be fair, he's hard and he hits hard, but I think the shoulder does slide up into the neck area, and there was no arms. That's the problem for me. And if we're going to allow, World Rugby's directives, every week we seem to be talking about it now, and there's going to be a time.
But this surely this isn't even to do with the new directives. Like, that surely a tackle like that when the arm is down by the side.
Kind of 10,
that's been a
5 years ago. We're not even
like.
talking about that. The talk has changed. Trying to protect players, and I just think there's no arms wrapped there. He can why? Because we've now World Rugby have now said, well, it's still okay to go up in this area. When they're bringing in a trial, and they trial it at the under-20s about the nipple line. So if you're talking about a nipple line, he's above the nipple line. Now I know that that's not in
here at the
these
moment,
games yet, but I think there's no arms, and that's the problem. So you can see the kind of whiplash effect. Now some of the ex-players on social media, and I respect their opinions too, were saying, well, it's a perfectly good tackle and it was the correct decision. But I just think there wasn't enough of a right arm for me there in that tackle.
If you take the scoreboard from the top left-hand corner, if you take the time and the score away from that, and you look at that play, is Angus Gardner making a different decision? I guarantee he's given a penalty and a yellow all day long, because if he's given the penalty, I think because of the force and the impact, it's a yellow. If it's a different time in the game, it's a huge call. He's already blown the whistle and the TMO is saying check, 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 check. He goes a really brief look at it and then says, oh, there's enough right arm in it for me. There wasn't enough for right arm in it. I think it was a high shot with no arms. Okay, Alan, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll keep an eye out and see a few of those. We'll see it the weekend, yeah. Hopefully not. Are people going to be saying, well, Owen Farrell got away with it, so... I don't think so. I think people will realise he was fortunate. It was a different time in the game, Neil. I'd say I think it would have been a different outcome to that, but that's the way he hits, and he's one of these players who has to go a little bit lower and be careful. He was mightily relieved. You can see by his reaction. You can see by the reaction, yeah. Thanks for joining us, Alan. Cheers, as always.